Fintech Chatter TV. Presented by Tier 1 People. Leaders in Fintech Executive Search. Welcome to Fintech Chatter, the show where I connect with Fintech leaders for a bit of a chat. I'm your host, Dexter Cousins, and in today's show, I'm joined by Ben Pfisterer from Zeller. Ben is the CEO and co-founder at Zeller, the Melbourne-based Fintech, reimagining business banking for Australian businesses. Ben has extensive financial services experience across both local and global organizations and was previous country manager for Square. Zeller is one solution for all your business finances. From EFTPOS and invoicing to accounts and cards, it's everything you expect from a business bank, but better. Every Zeller product is designed to give complete visibility over payments, spending, expenses, and cash flow. I chat to Ben about his journey as a founder, what he learned working with one of the world's biggest fintechs, and I also have a grumble about how bad business banking is for small business owners like me. But before we chat to Ben, if you're new to the show, make sure to follow us if you're listening on podcast, or subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're coming back, thanks for your support. Hey Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey Dexter, huge thank you for having me on.
Mate, 3 years ago today, I was sat in a coffee shop in Melbourne with you, and Zeller didn't even have a name, was very much in stealth mode, and I think I invited you on the podcast back then, and you quite rightly said, let's wait until we do something first, and then I'll go on. So it's an absolute joy to have you on the show. And look, I think, in fairness, could have easily had you on 2 years ago because it's been really incredible what you've done. But rather than me telling people, would you like to tell our listeners a bit about Zeller and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. That reflection on catching up is amazing because, rarely you kind of stop and look back at these timestamps on life and realize how fast time is traveling. But crazy how much has changed for all of us. And by the way, congratulations on your 7 years, I believe, for Tier 1.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, thank you.
For Zeller, mainly came around from the fact that, a few of us in the founding team had sort of deep experience in payments and financial services. And we were looking around the world, seeing that was obviously at the onset of a real accelerated part of the boom in fintech. And there's a lot of businesses, moving into the financial services space, but for businesses, but I don't think anyone's solving the real root problem. There was a lot of these, this sounds a bit off in calling them niches, but there was a lot of products and businesses being built for particular needs, whether that's lending, sort of credit cards, expense management, invoicing, and they're all great needs, but they're not always what every business needs. So we took a step back and actually, what does every business need from a financial service provider? And that was to be their MFI, their main financial institution. So we just dissected what we thought that primary relationship is today. And it came up with sort of 3 products. And that was obviously the ability to accept card payments. Electronic payments, as we know, is rapidly displacing cash. So having a pretty deep experience in that space that I knew firsthand that we could do it a lot better, and it still wasn't anywhere near where it could be from an innovation or a cost perspective or a reliability. The list goes on. So could we build a next generation EFTPOS terminal solution? But that money in component was only one part of it. Businesses then needed to go to their bank or someone else to open an account where to put their money. So often they had to bifurcate that experience. So we thought, well, if we've got the payment in the terminal experience, can we then add on an account so they can collect their funds and get access to it quicker? So the thesis was yes. And then the third party, that money in, money held, is obviously the money out. Like, can we help these businesses who commonly have hassles and complexities with cash flow issues actually get their money, put their money to use, whether it's, paying expenses, paying rent, paying staff and the like. So that's when we put obviously the transferring ability of the account and then the business MasterCard on the back of it. And then we put that all together, and that was the initial product set, and making sure that you only need to sign once and you get all that. So effectively you could run your business on Zeller. And that was the initial premise of it. But longer term, it was very much to say there were so many pain points in the business banking experience. Like, with today, businesses are forced to, go to a traditional bank and then cobble together this mismatch of, different fintechs and what have you. Like, can we just actually put that under one roof, either build it ourselves or partner with the best in class and bring an integrated solution to market?
Awesome. And who typically kind of, is this just purely to small businesses? We've seen, kind of similar approaches, but it's very much been focused on, sole business owners, us poor PTY Limited small business operators seem to have been forgotten about. Who are your customers?
No, it's absolutely any business type. We're sector agnostic and size agnostic as well. I guess the only area where we probably tap out a bit is when you get into those really, really large enterprise who want, large access to debt facilities and what have you, which obviously something we don't offer at the moment. But apart from that, we don't want to ostracize anyone in the ecosystem. So a lot goes into our onboarding that we can onboard any types of business structures as well. So yeah, definitely open across the market.
Fantastic. Now, I was looking forward to this chat for another reason. I've just come off the back of a very frustrating 10 days with my business bank, who's also my personal banker, who also has my mortgage, and has basically all of my financial information at hand from the last 5 years. And I'm in the position where I needed to buy a new car and thought I'll do it through the business. Mate, 8 days later, still didn't get a result. I think I spent a day and a half filling in forms, giving them information they already had. Is this just me, or is this happening to Jeffrey?
I wish for this Australian business community I could say it was just you, Dexter, and no offense to you. But no, it's definitely not just you. It's across the board. And yeah, the irony of us sort of setting up Zeller at the start, we had exactly the same problem because obviously we hadn't built all the infrastructure or the accounts. So we had to go and get a bank account ourselves. And yeah, I think ours took at least 6 weeks. I don't think we even completed the actual proper onboarding of going into branches. And it required...
You would have been lucky, because COVID hit, so you couldn't go in and sign the form.
Yeah, it was a little bit before that, but it would have been even worse with that. And I think at one point we were recommended to fax documentation in, which we just always fell off our proverbial chairs. So no, it's just definitely not you. And we recently did a survey where 91% of Aussie businesses feel that their business bank isn't meeting their needs, and that sort of supports the experience you went through as well. And also 90% of businesses would actually consider going to a new digital-only business banking experience, obviously like we're trying to build at Zeller. So it's definitely not you, it's across the market. It's really been forgotten when you look at all the innovation happening across fintech, just that the real push to get into the core, being the MFI of business banking, just hasn't been done. There's a simple reason, is because it's exceptionally difficult. But no, it's definitely not you.
Yeah, and I certainly am not going to knock the effort that I think banks are putting in to try and solve this problem. But it just kind of illustrates to me that they're not equipped to solve it. Would you agree with that?
I would. I mean, if I was taking a positive light, on the Australian banks as well, obviously they provide a very stable infrastructure and service, across the market. So there's a big tick there. But just the rate of change and the way businesses and consumers' needs are evolving so rapidly, literally for them to keep up, let alone having to look back at the infrastructure and how it adapts to new form of technology and new builds or doesn't, is an incredibly hard task. So I guess, again, shining a positive light on it, they have to pick their bets. And often they move quickest on areas where potential disruption is happening the fastest. And obviously the consumer banking, neobanking side around the world is, very much in spotlight and has been for a number of years. So I guess they're trying to innovate on that space as much as they can, but we're still seeing that they're nowhere near some of the more advanced consumer products either. But on the business bank, I just don't think they've been challenged at all. And I think globally business banks have been pretty comfortable sitting on generic propositions that in no way are evolving to meet the modern needs of businesses. So they don't have that impetus or push to actually make the change required.
Yeah. It's been really interesting, just to see how things have evolved since COVID as well. Australia, I think, is a really great example for business banking as a micro ecosystem, because we've got, 2.5 million small and medium-sized businesses. I think around about half of those are, sole trader businesses. if you think, the amount of tradies that we've got, the startup ecosystem, retailers, kind of all of these different business models that fit into this small business category. What was the, from your kind of thinking of starting the business, because everybody, recommends you go for a niche. What was your thinking around, well, how do we kind of niche or hone in, on this kind of business space? Because it is still pretty wide and large.
Yeah, it is. It's a good question. I don't think we probably followed the playbook. If you look at business case studies of actually, focusing on one thing and getting that right over time and evolving, it probably comes from the fact that the personalities involved with the business. And by way of example, my background, I absolutely love working on projects or for companies or anything that is really difficult. I just get bored super quick on stuff that's boring or just sort of in the motions or doing a job someone else has done. So when we looked at this, we thought to actually crack through into the segment where business owners know us alongside the big banks or big US-based fintechs, you have to make a bit of noise and you have to do something that's really different and you have to do it really well. So part of it was just we're a sucker for challenge and we just love the fact that we could do as much as we can and do try to take on stuff that's difficult. But also that again, back to that initial premise is to be that MFI, you actually have to offer a breadth of products. And unfortunately, if you can't do that from day one, you'll take a lot longer to get there, to get to that sort of common psyche consideration set. So yeah, and we thought those three products just sat together perfectly for every business. So we took it on, but we are an absolute product-led, innovation-led business. I'm not going to be the CEO of a business that isn't innovating. So yeah, we've got a long list of products and services we're building and deploying as we speak. So that certainly will never stop from us.
Yeah. And anything kind of exciting that you're working on right now that you can share? Or you're about to launch?
So, last year we effectively started a new tranche of work, which was effectively building 7 brand new fintechs within Zeller. So, having already 3 combined as one, we had another 7 to launch. So we've spent the last few months building that, a lot of it from scratch, and really excited to say we've kicked the year off with a few launches. So just the last few weeks, we launched Zeller Invoices, and so that's within the whole Zeller ecosystem. So you don't have to go out and plug something else in or take another service provider. It's already there. There's no incremental monthly fees or anything. The processing rates are exceptionally low based on what we already do as well. So we were able to offer that incremental service, but we've taken a new lens on it. How can we make it easier for invoices or merchants to not have to chase invoices and check whether they've been paid? There's an integrated bank account so they can automatically see whether it's been paid. So Zeller Invoices is one big part of it. The second one was Zeller App. I don't want to use a super app because it's such a cliched, overused title, but our premise has been we want an app where businesses can get everything in the one spot, so they can see all their money coming in from different sources or money going out. They can see their customer profiles, their invoices, anything like that in the one spot. So you can download a Zeller app now and have a look at that. And the third part was probably the biggest one, but probably harder to explain any sort of to the non-fintech people is what we kind of call a standalone business transaction account. So if you look at our offering to date, it's been more predicated on accepting card payments and then an account to support that. But we've recently launched a standalone business transaction account. So no matter who you are, if you're an eBay seller, online seller, if you're a consultant, if you're a tier 1 recruiter, for example, that has a podcast, no matter who you are, you can sign up and you don't have to use our payments products. You can use our transaction accounts. You can use our invoices. Effectively, you can use whatever you want. And over time, if your business grows and needs change, you can start using any solutions, or you can keep using part of the products that you want to use from other providers. We're also okay with that. We don't believe in forcing you to use our product. So those 3 things were the big launches over the last couple of weeks. And yeah, we're very much focused on getting the word out there and making sure businesses know that these products are in market.
I have to say, right, I kind of get a little kind of smile whenever I go into a coffee shop and I go to pay and it's a Zeller terminal. It's kind of because I know the origins of where it's come from, right? It's like such a it's such a kind of gratifying thing to see, just more and more. I remember when I first seen the terminal when I went into Officeworks, and I was like, geez, I got to get in touch with Ben. No, I want to kind of just dig a little deeper on the strategy that you had, because it is really bold to go and take on 3 different things at once. It completely flies in the face of advice. How have you managed to keep so disciplined to be able to execute on those three things, and at the same time, execute on those three things where the world was in turmoil and we're going through a global pandemic. And you're bringing people into the business you've never met before who are all working remotely. I mean, that must have just been insane, right? Like, I can't think of another way. Like, it sounds impossible to do talking about it now.
Yeah, no, well put. It was absolutely insane. There's no doubt about it. And we look back and it was technically, again, if you would just take everyone's advice every time you did something, it was the worst time to launch our product. I mean, we were effectively spearheaded by a face-to-face payment solution with, accounts and cards attached to that. Now, as you know, in Australia and around the world, but Australia, we had the most severe business and economic lockdowns you could find. Like, businesses literally were told to stop operating for many, many months. So launching into that was just ridiculously, ill-timed to a degree, but it actually opened up some perverse sort of growth trajectory for us and I'm only sort of pontificating about this, I haven't done any, research on it, but I think it was the first time businesses actually had a chance to actually take a step back and some pause for a minute to go, actually, am I best equipped with this innovation changing? Have I got the best banking solution on board? Have I got the best account? How much am I paying for my EFTPOS payments? All that sort of thing. So I think they actually paused to sharpen their business up to make sure they ran better, but also have a renewed focus on cost. That was part of it. But in terms of launching the business, again, as you would know, and every entrepreneur knows, like, when you come up with something you want to do, you can't dictate the timing. If it's there and you want to do it, you'll do it whenever you're ready. And that was absolutely the case for us. And I started 2020, really started to put the wheels in motion on that. And we didn't know that COVID was coming. So maybe we would have thought twice if we'd seen it on the horizon somehow. But I think for us, it was an absolute blessing in disguise. Not that I would want that period ever again. But for us, actually, because we were all literally locked in our homes. And so, you literally couldn't go out, you couldn't socialize as per everyone. But so we had nothing else to do but build this business. So I think that first year to be able to build those three products, integrate them, get them ready to launch to the degree of stability and innovation that we did within 14 months was probably due to the fact that we were absolutely myopically focused and restricted geographically to not do anything but build this business. So a big part of it is that. I think the other big sort of thing that we got right is being realistic about what's involved. Like, you only have to pause for 1 second to go, let's take on some of the biggest banks literally in the world in our market, plus some of the most well-capitalized, advanced global fintechs as well. Like, if you try to do that lightly, you will fail. Even if you've got a great product, a great team, you do a small thing, it will fail unless you absolutely have that perfect streak through. So we thought, if we're going to do this, it's big. We have to bring on amazing investors. We have to bring on material capital, not just for the fun of the process, but actually we need to be supported really well to build these big products and get them to market and grow them like we want to. So that was a big part of it. But also that realization, not being my first business that I've launched, is that when I was first thinking about it, I knew that trying to do it myself would be incredibly arrogant and stupid, and I just don't know enough about everything we're going to do it. And I'm not the type to want to, hoard portions of my company or maximize my shares. Like, I want to get the best team around me. I want them to have skin in the game, and I want to make sure if we have any chance of making this work, we need the best in class people around us from the very outset. The biggest thing we got right was just the initial 4 co-founders, amazingly talented people, but real clear delineation of roles of what we're doing. It was a big part of it. And the fact that we knew...
If you don't mind me asking, what were the kind of 4 different skill sets or profiles that you felt kind of came together to make, to give you that chance of success?
Yeah, so there's myself being the CEO. I have obviously a background in payments and financial services, so I know a lot how growing a brand, the growth part of it, supporting a brand, bringing teams together, making sure we're ticking all the boxes for what you have to do in a quasi and fully regulated environment for different parts of these products. And obviously, I know how to build teams as well and brands from the perspective of what I did with Square, but I hadn't built infrastructure. So the second part of that equation is we need some really big firepower in the technology side of things. So rather than just take on one, I guess we don't really use these titles, but a CTO, we got 2. So we got David and Alfred, who in their own rights are phenomenally talented standalone CTOs. but then their roles were clearly delineated quite simply at the time. There's overlap now, but like front end, back end, and let's just focus on that, and you do those exceptional things well. And then there's Dom, who worked with me at Square, and we know we work well together. We know we complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. So just having that ability for us to split a lot of the roles. So having those 4 split. But the other big thing I did think we did well, which I don't think many co-founders do well, or have an honest conversation about what it means to be a co-founder. One thing I was really clear on getting agreement on was like, okay, we're all co-founders, but co-founder is just a historical footnote, like just to say you're co-founders. Yeah. Like the teams you bring on straight away, they're all co-founders, they're all founding team. But being a co-founder is not a role, it's just a fact. So make sure we play our roles, and what are our roles? Let's define them, and let's play to the strengths and support each other to succeed in our own roles. And just that clear delineation from the start would set us up definitely for that initial success.
Mm. Now, the initial funding that you got as well, completely under the radar, nobody knew about it. It was significant, right? Like, how did you go about getting that level of seed money behind you? And I'm not going to say the number, but it's, I think, probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the history of the Australian startup scene. How did you get that, that kind of backing?
So I guess there's a little bit of naivety in this before we got to how we got it. Was originally the idea was, I've done a lot of stuff in tech and financial services, but I've never raised many millions in capital. So the initial thought was, let's just self-fund and get it going and get some sort of initial product towards market ready. And that was just ridiculously naive. Like, even though we could put a bit of capital in, it wasn't the right move. And my brother lives next door to Mike Starkey from Athena Home Loans. Right. And my brother and his wife would say, this guy called Mike doing this Athena thing, which I'd heard of, obviously. You should have a chat to him before you start. And I was like, okay, cool, that's good. And I'm assuming you've met Mike. But Mike's a phenomenally nice guy and very helpful and very transparent. So the initial conversation, he was pretty clear in just saying, you're pretty stupid not to chat to a couple of VCs. And I was like, I don't want to go down that path just yet. But then he suggested, Paul Bassett, who I'd met before, but, Paul at Square Peg, and Alex at Apex. And I just had a chat to both of those guys. And literally the first chat with Paul was, it was, I kind of joke about this, but, I wasn't there to pitch, which is a stupid thing if you're sitting in a VC's office, but I was just telling him what we were trying to set out to do and my approach to it and the team were putting together. And it was a very positive meeting. And, a few days later we had a term sheet. So it just went really quickly. And obviously getting Apex in, Alex was just the same. He's a business builder himself. He understood it. He understood exactly what you're talking about, the pain point. So the process was very organic. It was very fast. And but we were upfront. We don't want to raise, a couple $100,000 and see how we go. We want to, build bring in a material amount of capital and do this properly. And, we had their support, which was great.
Yeah. We've seen Judo come in and kind of do a really good job around a very specific segment. You've talked about a lot of niches. What do you think is kind of the thing that's missing right now?
Yeah. Back to your initial point of different neobanks, I think one of the most common mistakes, and this is not any revelation on my behalf, it was just pretty obvious to me, but obviously to a lot of people as well, is that any fintech around the world which is absolutely reliant on chasing an interchange play, it just does not work. It doesn't work. Yeah. It might, in the US with higher interchange, it might work temporarily, but if you're relying on that longer term as cash is displaced and central banks put more focus on the cost of acceptance, it's just never going to last. So the one thing we were clear on, there was no way that we were going to just be an interchange play, and we wanted to make sure we wanted to do two things. We wanted to scale really quickly, but we wanted to be revenue positive from day one. We wanted to generate revenue. So that's why being able to process payments, we built our own payment gateway, a lot of our own infrastructure that we wanted to make sure we were making money from the first day we operated, and then we could iterate and launch new products. And that was a little bit different, our different take on it. And
I was going to say that was a radical approach in 2020, wasn't it?
I go figure.
Fintech startup to make money.
Work out your monetization strategy from day one. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of businesses do that well and not know their monetization strategy. I think Cash App was, for example, one thing I saw at Square. That they had obviously ideas of monetization, but they had no idea what they ended up doing. So, but I knew the pressure that gets put on you if you don't have that clear strategy to monetization. So I definitely didn't want that, and it didn't make sense to do that. So no, it was a little bit counter to the market, but it's obviously served us well in terms of what's next. And you're citing Judo, for example, and definitely kudos to them. That their strategy was I guess unique to the way they wanted to approach it, and it's different to many others. And they just stuck to their guns and did what they do well. I think for me, it's still, and I think they still, and I don't mean to criticize them or the others, but we still, as business, we call it what you will, financial services for businesses, business banking or whatever, we still haven't hit that equal footing with the big banks, because it takes time to really get your brand to that common psyche understanding from businesses. And Judo hasn't got there yet, growing really well, doing the right things, but I think they'll probably admit they're not there yet and they can't wait to get there. And then the business will be an absolutely more so of a rocket ship. And same thing for us. Like, we're only a year and a half, just under 2 years into being live, and we've got a long way to go in a positive way. So we're looking forward to that, and I can't wait. And that's the thing that bugs me about fintech in general, and definitely in Australia. In spite of there being so much innovation, amazing work by entrepreneurs, countless times launching businesses, there's almost no businesses, or there's a couple kind of chipping away that yet to get to that level pegging, that equal standing as these big four banks. And that obviously takes time because they've been around for, God knows how long. So we don't expect them to get there. There's still a long way to go, which is why that whole question of, regulation and supporting startups, and that what has to still continue. It has to still getting these fintechs to make sure that they are on a level standing. And I think once we see brands getting to that, like you see in the US, that's when I think the Australian fintech scene will be really, really exciting.
Fantastic. And what can we kind of come to expect from Zeller and the rest of 2023?
Obviously, we've launched a few new products. So again, anyone, and I assume this is an absolute podcast appealing to an amazing set of entrepreneurs. So no matter what business you've got, you can actually start, putting away those outdated bank accounts and actually try something new that has a whole lot more functionality and helps you run your business better, and ultimately gives you back more time to do what you do, which is run your business. So anyone that's running a business out there, check out myzeller.com. And I think you'll find our products are, pretty exciting for your needs, and we're evolving super quick. So check it out. If there's any feedback, there's things we're missing, we love that. We love hearing it from people who want something more. But our promise that we'll constantly innovate, and products we don't have yet, we will have in the future. And hopefully we can help Aussie businesses grow.
And we also get incredible talent listening to this podcast. If anybody's out there and they want to find out more about the types of opportunities and working at Zeller, where's the best place for them to go?
The careers page is on our website, myzeller.com. Please come and check it out. We are still hiring, so there's some really exciting roles. We're a really exciting phase as well as we start to grow off the platform of early success. So hopefully not too many people in the tech and tech space have been burnt to what's happened recently, and there's still a few out there that are super keen to actually dig their heels in and try it. So check it out, see if there's a role there. But we're constantly putting new roles up, so if it's not today, have a look tomorrow. And we'd love to have a chat to any talent out there.
Well, Ben, it's been great to have you. I kind of keep going back to this date 3 years ago today, but to be sitting here now and just spent this last 45 minutes with you, mate, I got to say, it's just amazing what you've done.
Very, very kind. Thank you. It's a big bunch of people put a lot of effort in. We are very proud of them, but we're also very guilty of not, stopping every now and again and actually saying the very early success is going well. But we're just looking forward to the next phase of it. But no, very, very kind words. Thank you, Dexter.
Thanks, Ben. And you can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. If you're new to the show, make sure to give us a follow and a subscribe, because it really helps me book fantastic guests like Ben onto the show and help other fintech fans like you find the show as well. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a subscribe and like. If you're coming back, thanks so much for your support. And until the next episode, keep well